We are following some breaking news tonight out of Sudan. A second convoy of American citizens arrived in Port Sudan. Now, this is part of an effort to evacuate Americans from the country's conflict. The State Department says nearly 1,000 citizens have been evacuated since the start of the violence. And a few days ago, buses carrying around 300 Americans made the journey along UN evacuation routes. But so far, the U.S. has not announced an official evacuation plan for the estimated 16,000 American citizens in Sudan. Today, we're learning a 72-hour ceasefire in the area has been extended. However, there are multiple reports of fighting taking place throughout the capital, making ongoing evacuations even more of a challenge. We'd like to welcome Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for the Obama administration, to help us break down these new details. Joel, great to have you here. So you were on about a week ago. You were talking with Natasha about the big picture, and you noted it being a dark moment when diplomats faced an ordered departure. Now, a week later, we've seen U.S. citizens being evacuated. So what does this tell you about the state of conflict in Sudan right now?
Well, Kelly, it's great to be with you. And you're exactly right. This is a moment to assess what we're looking at now a week later. And it is going in the wrong direction, clearly, with Americans having to be evacuated from Sudan. Now, it's tenuous, and that's the good news, which is that there is this ceasefire that's holding, but it doesn't mean that the warring parties are actually deciding to stop fighting. They're just pausing it. And so we're seeing our diplomacy providing safe passage for the Americans, but ongoing efforts are very vigorous right now. The State Department put out a note last night about Americans getting out, and as you noted, and there's a lot more communication with those who may want to get out further. So it's very tenuous right now.
And I want to get to that ceasefire in just a moment. I also thought it was really interesting that you noted previously, this is a mineral-rich country with China and Russia both vying for power and influence. Want to kind of pull it big picture. Why is it so imperative that this doesn't break out into a full-blown civil war?
First and foremost, Kelly, it's a country of 35 million. It has had decades of war. It had a dictator that was Omar al-Bashir that was thrown out several years ago. And it's just recovering and had the hope of becoming a more democratic and civilian-led government. But to the core point of this being resource-rich, right now there is a great competition happening in Africa. Russia has been engaged. China has been heavily engaged for the last several decades, looking for mines, looking for precious metals and minerals to try to use those for their advantage, clearly. And the United States, in many ways, we've been absent from the continent. Now we're seeing this administration engage heavily. Secretary of State Blinken was there recently. The vice president, the president will be going. So there's a lot of activity to try to get Africans and African governments to turn to our side, quite bluntly, because if we don't, if we lose that route, Africa is a growing continent, significant amount of young people, significant resources, and we really don't want it to fall into the laps of China or Russia.
All right. Several challenges there. Joel Rubin, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks,
we
Kelly.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.